I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start with a quick video. That actually happened this Tuesday. He was able to break the world record and solve a Rubik's Cube in 4.74 seconds. So what I'm going to do today is solve a Rubik's Cube in 4.5 seconds. Just kidding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys the general principles of a Rubik's Cube. I'll show you generally how it works. And when I was a couple years ago in high school, I got interested, watched a YouTube video, and now I can generally do it in around 2 minutes, so not 4.74 seconds, but just not there yet. After this video, you probably won't be able, or after this presentation, you probably won't be able to solve a Rubik's Cube, but you'll have some general knowledge and be able to look it up and learn it if you want to. What we're going to be going over is the general principles, where things are on a cube. We're going to be going over some general lingo and some terminology used. And we're going to be going over solving a cross on one, not there. A cross here on one side. We're going to then solve the whole front layer. Then we're going to flip it over and solve the rest of the cube. So first with some general what's on the cube, we got this. Each side is identified by their color, by the middle cube. So this is the red side, this is the yellow side, this is the blue side, the white side, the green side, and the orange side. Each centerpiece does not move. So no matter which way you turn it, that orange square is going to stay where it is. Also, when you're looking at the cube, the front face is the face facing you. The top is the up face, the right is the right face, and the left is the left face. So it's illustrated by this cube right here, and the down is the down face. We're going to get right into it. What I always solve from the green side, because that was just the way on the YouTube video, the first time I watched it, they solved the green side, and I'm familiar with that side. It helps with familiarity if you solve the same side every time, knowing what colors are in back of which. So we're going to start by solving the green side. So what we need to do to solve this cross is get each of these edge pieces. Each edge piece cannot be a corner piece, and each corner piece cannot be an edge piece. So what we need to do is find these edge pieces. See one right here, it is the orange and green piece. So you go down and you move that to the orange side. Sorry if you guys can't see. And you move it up, and right here, I'm sorry, real quick. There are algorithms that you need to know to be able to solve the Rubik's Cube. Listed right here. Each algorithm, put in my definition, is moving space from where you where it is to where you want it to be without messing up what you've solved so far. So it should be able to move a piece where you want it to be and not mess up the rest of your cube. Okay, so now we'll get into it. So we got so we move this up here, and what we need to do, since it's not where we need it to be, is do this first algorithm. Front inverted, up, left inverted, up inverted. And each rotating, so we already know what the front face is, front, right, up, left, down. But when you say up, it's turning that face clockwise once. If you say inverted, it's turning that face counterclockwise. So we move that one up. Now we have to find the other edge pieces. We find this one here, orange. It's not where we need it to be. So we do that first algorithm, move that there, and then we find another piece. We move it since it's the green and red piece, we have to move it to the red side. And right here, bring it up, and it's not where we need it to be, so we have to use that first algorithm. Then we find that last piece here, perfect. And make sure you don't mess up the other parts when you're moving these around. And we have to use that algorithm to move it to the top. So we've solved that green cross. Now what we need to do is solve the rest of the green side. So we have to find these corner pieces. Here is a white and orange piece. So we have to move that to the white and orange side, perfect. And do this second algorithm, right inverted, down inverted, right, down. And it is moved up. Next we get to another piece. I move it down so that you're able to move it easily from side to side. White and red, so we pair it to the white and red, and we use that same algorithm. We may have to use it multiple times to bring it up. Okay, and here's another one, the red and yellow. Just using that same algorithm repeatedly to move it up. And lastly, this one. You need to be able to get it between those two sides. Now we are done with that first face and that first layer. Now we flip it over and we start solving this side. So what we're going to do is you have to match, color match, get the yellow with the yellow, and we have to move this edge piece to here. And that is this, this first algorithm here. Up inverted, it's hard to say the algorithms when you shoot. Okay, I'm just gonna finish this off. Yeah. Here I'm using that third to last algorithm to solve for this blue cross. I'm using the second to last algorithm. This is the last algorithm. And finally finish it out with the second algorithm again. And there you go. Thank you.
I want to see all the slides. She said that she was like, speech class, and she said that they did. She said that it just comes out of your mouth.
You don't know when you're up there, you're never just. Or just start like the stretch.
All right, David, I think you start off pretty well. You've got the video clip to get our attention. There's a nice piece of humor to transition to the purpose of the speech. You have a very clear statement of what your thesis is. There's a preview that gets a little bit stretched out on your pacing as you're presenting it, so it feels a little bit awkward. And that turns out to set up a pattern for the presentation that I think comes up every time you get to a new point that you're talking about. There's this sort of awkward moment where you have to consider what it is you're doing next, because you're working on the puzzle at the same time that you're trying to speak to us, and you sort of disengage from talking to the audience. And that happens entirely once you get to the last third of the presentation. It's basically a silent presentation at that point, and that's a little bit odd. Pantomime doesn't work well for public speaking. It's really problematic. Like I said, I thought at the beginning of the speech that you engaged us pretty well. Your voice is energetic and friendly. You look at us pretty regularly. You show us some things effectively at the beginning of the presentation, but once you start going through all the algorithms, which nobody's going to be able to remember after this, I think you recognize that. Yeah. You know, it's sort of like you get absorbed in doing the puzzle and getting it done, instead of talking about what it is that is so essential about those particular steps. In other words, there's a mathematical progression that you have to use in order to get to the end point, and the mathematical progression requires that you go through each of these algorithms every time you get to a particular step. So I think instead of maybe working on having the whole thing done by the time your speech is done, which I can see is one of your objectives, and I understand that. That makes sense. It might make sense to say, say from the very beginning, I'm not going to try and solve this in the next 7 minutes. I could probably do so. What I want you to do, though, is I want you to understand how the algorithms work, how you go through the system, you go back to it, because you keep going, and then you go to the second one, and then you do the third one, and then I got this corner, and I'm going, it's going a little quick for me, and I get the idea that there's a pattern there. I get the idea that there's a system that you're using, and that if you just kind of stick with the mathematical progression there, the result is going to be excellent. But what I'm having trouble is following what all those progressions are and seeing them. And of course, once you're showing them, that's what it becomes. It becomes about showing and not explaining. And I think that's when you stop talking to us and sort of disengage. So you lose the stuff that you had at the beginning of the speech where you were connecting with us effectively, and then it turns into us watching you solve a puzzle, which might be interesting, might not be interesting. It just depends. I don't know. Watching people do stuff, when they do stuff that's interesting, it can be interesting. And yours was pretty interesting, but it's, like I said, it's not exactly what we had intended for the assignment. You may have heard me chuckle a little bit at the beginning when I was going through the evaluation forms, because I saw your topic and I looked at that and I thought, aha, this was one of the first speeches that I heard when I was a graduate student in college, the first year I was teaching.
How long?
It was 1980 is when that happened. My second semester teaching, and somebody said, I'm going to solve Rubiks Cube for you. I'm going to show you how to solve Rubiks Cube. He had a 10-minute speech. By the way, he didn't finish it. Right? Which was problematic, because it was, that was what his purpose was in that speech, and it was for an informative presentation. And he didn't have the document camera or any of those sorts of things. He's standing in front of the audience doing all the things that you're doing there, and not really explaining it. It was like we watched for 9 minutes while he struggled to go through this whole progression, and then at the end he wasn't quite finished, and I said, well, we got to stop, and he sat down, and I thought, I don't know that I should let people do this again, and then you had it, and I went, oh, okay, well, we'll see how it goes. A lot of good stuff, and a good start. I just think that it's a natural thing. Once you start getting engaged in something that you're doing, you disengage from the people that you're talking to, and that's the big problem here. All right, thank